Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3, testing. Is this thing on? Am I here? Or is this live, or is this Memorex? This is winter of 2019. Have you been wondering where Laura's been? I've been where the wild things grow. Whether it be winter time, whether it be fall, spring, summer. This was prior to March of 2020. This is winter of 2019, when all of the world was sort of normal. If it's ever normal. I mean, well, really, folks, what is normal? Really? I have no idea. I'm going to be 63 and I haven't figured it out yet. And you know what? It doesn't matter. As long as I can giggle and I can smile, no matter what, I'll find a rainbow somewhere in amongst bad weather. So let it snow when it's winter time here, because it certainly does here in Ontario, Canada. I'm north of Toronto, so we get quite a few feet of snow. I don't know how many meters that would be. I usually measure snow in feet. I'm from the US of A, but that was over 3 decades ago, so where am I actually from? I've been living up here in Canada longer than I had lived in the United States, so yeah, I just happen to live here. And the fall of 2019, the chipmunk discovered, oh boy, she covers her plants in burlap. This is perfect for a nest. So the chipmunks decided on his second litter. Did you know that chipmunks have 2 litters a year of babies? Yeah, they do. I have a battle with chipmunks. I don't know if you remember that or not, but I do. So he gathered all of my burlap for his nest in the fall of 2019. The winter of 2019, oh my goodness, it was a doozy. You won't find many pictures of 2020 because the winter of 2020, I didn't even bring out my camera. No, I didn't. My pup of many years, she lived to be 19 years old, passed away, so I lost my pup and my gardening companion. So it took a while to get used to things, but I just kept remembering my garden, what it's going to be in the spring, and the battles I have with the slugs and the chipmunks and the squirrels, and waiting for spring to come. That's, I mean, what else are you going to do? Really? Bury your head in the snow? Well, it's too cold for this southerner. And I still consider myself a southerner in the wintertime when it's so cold, minus 30, minus 40 out there. Yeah, that's cold, folks. I hunker down and I stay in unless I have to move some snow. So I had to say goodbye to my beloved pup. Yeah, but it was her time. I mean, we all have our time. Our garden has a time, and I mean, you grow it in the spring and it flourishes in the summertime, and then in the fall you harvest. And then your garden's gone, you got to put it to bed, and then winter hits again. But you can enjoy your garden. My echinacea, a bird must have planted it, or a squirrel, or a chipmunk over there in that part of the yard. Yes, indeed. They love moving my things around, which is fine. It's a nice surprise to find new things. But, yeah, 2019. And then came 2020. Yes, the winter of 2020. I really didn't bother making very many snow videos. Yeah, I did garden last summer, and this was the spring of 2020. And my rhubarb, I moved from the back of that permaculture bed to the front, and it's already doubled in size this year of 2021. So that was a good move. It just wasn't getting enough sunlight where it was before. So 2020, I watched the birds. These are the most beautiful, creamy looking birds you've ever seen. If they were a dessert, they would be yummy. Look how creamy they are. Not that I would eat this beautiful bird, I'm just saying they're just gorgeous. So I sat last year and watched them drink the water and gather up little things they could eat, little morsels of food, and it was just absolutely delightful. Look at them. Aren't they just the sweetest things you've ever seen in your life? So I had to make the summer of 2020 the best I could. Not knowing what 2021's garden was going to look like. Oh boy. But 2020, watching these beautiful birds from my comfy rocking chair out my picture window, because I didn't dare go outside, they would fly away. So I just watched them sip the water off the planter base there in the rain. It was slightly drizzling at this particular time. There was so much joy in my heart to watch these birds. In a time when joy is, few and far between to find, in 2020 in the summer, you have to go and look for joy. So I went and I found joy, and it was right there outside my window. I didn't have to travel. I didn't have to go anywhere. I couldn't if I wanted to, because in March of 2020, since I wasn't going out because I was staying in like everybody else was, my car battery died. Well, since I wasn't going to be going out and my daughter was bringing my food, she was getting it for me and bringing it to me, I just sort of said, okay, the car is 22 years old, battery died, let's just let it stay in the garage and won't worry about it. After a month of that, I went, why am I paying car insurance? So I canceled my car insurance because I knew it was going to be well over a year before I even tried to start the car up again, if I was going to, which I probably wasn't, because, the car repairs were getting ridiculous on a 22-year-old car. So it's pretty much, yard art if I had it in the yard. It's still in the garage. And it's got a storing a lot of old electronics that's no longer used because I can't get to the recycle place that recycles your old electronics. So it's in the trunk of the car. And so that was good. I saved a lot of money. And guess what? Because I didn't have a car, because I was a smoker, yes I was, and because I didn't have a car where I could just go out on a whim and get my cigarettes, in March of 2020 was when I decided, well, I guess I quit smoking, because I wasn't going to ask my daughter to pick up cigarettes. So I quit smoking in March of 2020. So with everything going on in the world of 2020, in March, I quit smoking. I was saving money on repairs of my car, saving money on gasoline, saving money on insurance, of car insurance. Oh boy, was I saving money. And dreaming of spring and what kind of flowers I would have, and would I plant marigolds this year? Would I even bother? I did start worrying last summer about one of my trees. I had an invasion of caterpillars. I think you saw a close-up of them a few seconds ago. Yeah. Oh, food time and garden. Too bad we don't eat caterpillars. Because I had a feast if we did. But of course we don't. No, we don't eat caterpillars. But they ate every berry and almost every leaf on that poor tree. Yeah, they had a feast. They had a banquet on that tree. But that was okay. Geez, they're hungry too. They come out of winter, they're hungry. They come out of their cocoons, I'm hungry. going to turn into a beautiful butterfly of some sort. So I just, you make the best of your situation. There they are again. Those caterpillars, oh my God, there were hundreds of these just chomping away at my tree. But that's okay. I mean, what are you going to do? You have to garden with nature. I don't use pesticides. Wasn't going to kill them. I did pick a few hundred off, and throw them on the other side of my fence so they could find a different tree to eat. But other than that, what are you going to do? You live with nature. Nature's there. I'm encroaching on their property and where they live and where they eat. So look at that big juicy caterpillar. My goodness, that was a big one. Yeah, I'm over there grabbing them off, putting them in a bucket, throwing them over the fence so they can find another tree in the backyard, because there's so many trees on the other side of my fence that no one owns. They're just growing there in the laneway. So yeah, big gigantic caterpillars. So that was enjoyable last summer. But so far they have not invaded that tree. Knock on wood. This is only June right now, the middle of June actually. I'm talking to you from June 14th of 2021 when I'm doing the voiceover on this video. I made this video and I just never published it. I just sort of stopped making videos on YouTube. Yeah, I had to get in the right frame of mind, especially after losing my pup. I just didn't feel like doing any of it. And my comfrey came back. It's come back for the last few years. And my hostas, variegated hostas, is beautiful this year. Everything has gotten, it's very odd this year. Everything has gotten 3 times the size, which is weird because we've had a drought since the snow melted this year. You're still looking at 2020. I planted butternut squash. I planted 12 plants. Now, the slugs, as you can see there, hanging on, having a field day, they did find the blossoms of a lot of my squash. That's why I planted so many last year. Give some to the critters, and hopefully they don't eat everything and I get something out of it, which I eventually did get butternut squash. But yeah, we have to live with nature. We live in nature when we're gardening, and we have to just, I mean, I still put chicken wire around everything. I have a chicken wire garden up on my deck because I have chipmunks that like to travel to next door and they cross over on my deck. So I have a lot of things covered to try and save something for me. But all those little fencings came down and last fall, and so I didn't have a pup anymore that I needed to keep out. And so a lot of slug damage. I spent a lot of time last summer picking off slugs and putting them in salty water, and I don't even know if I'm going to do that this year. I planted 3 butternut squash down in my permaculture bed yard, and a few more up in my other little bed by my stairs. And I have quite a bit planted this year, 2021, on my garden deck in container gardening, because it's easier for me to water. It's easier to get to without having to do a lot of stairs. I have to be careful with my knees, what I do. But 2020 was a good year for the squash. Got quite a few squash. One was 4 pounds. I didn't get a picture of it once it hardened off to a beautiful orange color, but you'll see it. I think it's at the end of this video. But I did notice, because I had built my permaculture beds, because I had to have my birch tree cut down, so I built 3 permaculture beds out of the birch logs. and limbs and twigs from the birch tree that had to be cut down because it was rotting and dying. And a permaculture bed usually lasts, if you use hardwood, for about 20 years. So that's what I was hoping for, right at the time I turned 80, you know. Well, no, I uncovered the permaculture bed last fall, one of them, and all of the birch had gone away. All the logs were gone. Oh my, so all the logs are gone in the yard too. You're just looking at some of my gardening book notations I made for last year, 2020. I was just showing what I planted. I had a lot of Chantenay carrots. They turned out really good. And I planted them in an ice chest, a styrofoam ice chest, on my deck last summer. That worked out quite well. Anyway, what I was saying, the permaculture bed. So you need, if you want it to last 20 years, you're going to need hardwood underneath there. Well, live and learn. I learned. I do have some hardwood. I'm going to try and rebuild it towards the fall because it's all composted down. Oh, my compost. Speaking of compost, oh my heavens. My compost this year is just beautiful out of my compost bin. I sift it, you know, get the little rocks and little bits of bark out. Oh, it is just so beautiful. So my plants are going to love it this year. And boy, do I have plants. I planted potatoes. I had some, I think it was about a dozen store-bought potatoes. About the middle of winter, they started to sprout, so I just left them. And I went, okay, if they get soft and gooey and stinky, I'll throw them out. But if they don't, if they just chit in the bag, then I'll have some potatoes to plant. And I did. And they didn't rot. They just sort of shriveled up a little bit, but they chitted. And I planted them this spring in 2 separate batches, different times, 2 weeks apart. So I should have potatoes. They're growing beautifully. And yeah, I have all kinds of stuff out there. Oh, by the way, I had a pineapple. We did a pineapple challenge years ago. I don't even remember how long ago now it was. But it's, I needed some soil. And I took the pineapple plant out. And I put it in a jar of water, the roots. And I left it there all winter. And just made sure it had enough water, you know. And it stayed alive and it kept growing. So I had it in soil for over 5 years in the house growing. I took it out of the soil and I put it in a jar of water. Because I thought, it's never going to do anything. I'm tired of messing with it. They're my little carrots. I'm thinning them out there. And it lived and it kept growing in the water. Now, did you picture that? I took the pineapple plant out of the soil and put it in a jar of water. Yep, I did. All winter. So this spring, not too long ago, I took it out of the jar of water, rinsed it off, and put it in some soil, and now it's outside on my back deck. Yeah, that's how many I had to thin out. Boy, that was a nice little snack, because I planted them way too close. They were old seeds, so I didn't think they were going to come to anything. But last year, I planted bush beans. Oh my goodness, I just love those bush beans. They're the stringless kind. There's no strings on them. Oh, they're just gorgeous. So I planted them again twice this year. No, 3 times. So I'm going to have 3 separate harvests of bush beans this year. And I planted a bunch of tomatoes. And yeah, there's the little wee carrots from last summer. Aren't they precious? Those are just the ones I thinned out. They did get a little bit bigger, but they were very, very good. I enjoyed them. Yes, I did. And anyway, I was talking about the bush beans. I can't wait. I love green beans. I could almost live on vegetables and maybe a little meat every now and then. But yeah, I can't wait for this garden to actually. But we started out this year with very cold weather all through May. And once the snow melted, we went into a drought. All of May was drought. And just recently, the last couple of days, we've had rain. Yes. Actually, this part of the video, this is from 2020. And as I'm talking about rain, there was spores in one of my permaculture beds last summer. Look at that. Isn't that something? I don't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing. I didn't want to overly research it, but it was gross. And yeah, it didn't move, but you could almost feel like if you watched it long enough it would. And a few years prior to that, I had a bed of, I had a nest of wasps. And in my permaculture bed, they love that rotten wood. Boy, they made a nest in there, and all summer long they went back and forth. Now this was the reason I needed to get rid of my birch tree. There's a woodpecker. This is prior to the birch tree coming down. And the woodpecker just had a field day. Sorry for the upside down picture. But I had poppies a few years ago. My neighbor had a whole garden of dandelions. See, right next door to my fence. Yep. And there's a chipmunk. Yes, indeedy. And I had some mushrooms growing out of my thing. And last year's potatoes. I had a heart. I mean, you can't do anything but smile when you see that. You see a heart, you just can't help yourself. You have to smile. And that sunrise, I mean, yeah, look at that sunrise. I went out the door looking in one direction and turned around, and that's what I saw. And I went, okay, all is good with me right now. Look at that. Isn't that amazing? Nature, the universe, can be amazing. So I just need to keep finding the amazing things, the things that make me smile, inside and out, and just do the best that I can do, and garden whatever I can do. I don't know how I'm going to redo a permaculture bed. My hands are bad this year, my knees are bad, but I'm still able to do things. So as Sean James Cameron says, do little but do it often. This was 2019 leading into 2020's garden. That butternut squash there is what I grew last in 2020. There it is there growing. It grew so well that I had a 7-foot pole that I trained it up the pole. Yeah, I had fun. The whole thing, the whole permaculture bed was just full of gigantic leaves from the butternut squash. It was amazing. And I used sheets when it was really, really hot, when we had over 90 temperature for my cooler crops. I just covered with a sheet. And I MacGyvered some covers and things and try and keep the chipmunks out, but they found a way in. So I just put this way. I put some chicken wire over my garden truck, and so I have something to throw the sheet over if I need to, because I have collard greens in my garden truck. In the front and in the back I have cucumbers. Yeah, hot loving plant and cool loving plant all in the same container. Not the smartest idea, not the smartest gardener. Didn't think that one out. The sheet can cover half of it, so there we go. I mean, you know, it'll do. Yeah, it'll do. As long as I have enjoyment in my garden, which I do. I took the stress away. I took the stress of the critters away. I took the stress of the chipmunks away. Because there's not a thing I can do about it. They are going to eat whatever they choose to eat, no matter what I do. You know, I don't have a greenhouse. I don't have a place for a greenhouse. I have too many trees that sort of hang over. They encroach my backyard from the neighbors and from the backyard, so I can't really put a greenhouse up. It would because I have too many limbs that fall. Old limbs are very tall trees, so I do the best I can. I have a dream that I could have like a type of greenhouse off my deck. My deck's about, at the highest point, it's about 5 feet off the ground level. So there's quite a few stairs to get down to my yard. But it can get windy up there, so if I had a greenhouse put there or built one, of course wood's too expensive now. Not building anything out of wood. Thank goodness a few years ago I bought the replacement stair wood for my stairs, my garden deck stairs, in case I needed to replace some because it was starting to go, I noticed. So I went ahead and bought enough wood to replace quite a few stairs, and it's in my garage. Thank goodness I did that. So I don't have a car to go get it anymore, and with everything going on, I don't go out. And since March of 2020, I've only been out of the house going somewhere 3 times. And all those times, twice was to the doctor to get pills refilled, and the third one was to get blood work so I could get the pills refilled. Other than that, I've stayed in. I have not been out. Other than, my backyard, my front yard, and stuff like that. But I haven't gone anywhere. And it really doesn't affect me that much because I wasn't going out prior to March of 2020. I mean, I went out maybe once a month and did my grocery shopping. And I don't need for anything, And, isn't that beautiful? The sunflowers. Oh, I just love sunflowers. And I didn't plant any yet this year. Well, the chipmunks love to bite the heads off of them. Did you know if you have a stem with a sunflower and you cut the head off, it will grow back multiple heads? Give it a try if you have a sunflower you want to decimate. Cut the head off and then watch it triple with sunflower heads. Yeah, chipmunk taught me that. So, you can learn things from nature. Yep, you can learn things. Yeah. Oh, my goodness. I didn't plant any of those either, nasturtiums. And these are pictures from a few years ago, fall. And when I went to the cemetery, that was out at the cemetery in the fall. And I took some fall pictures, how gorgeous it is up here. It is beautiful up here. But like I was saying anyway, I didn't go out very much. And playing around with making cakes and cooking with my harvest. And, yeah. I mean, it is food time and garden, and I haven't really done very much, but I'm back. This is going to be a very long video, as you can tell by now. This is more of a chit-chat video and showing you something, so it's not just a black screen. But yeah, I wanted to do something a little different. I don't know, probably won't get many views because it's too long. If you're sitting down, putting your feet up, having a cold drink because it's hot in the summer, then I'm hoping you're enjoying this hodgepodge video of a multitude of things, a multitude of years. Just to sort of let you know I'm still alive and well, I'm still giggling, I still have a smile on my face, I still have a positive attitude towards life in general. I'm very fortunate that my daughter can go out and get my groceries and bring it in. I can order things off the interwebs if I need stuff, just to keep you sane. Sometimes you need to replace, a pair of socks because all of the ones you own have holes in them. Stuff like that, and yeah, I'm doing the best I can, and I hope everyone else is managing and able to get, out and about somewhat, and life has not been too awfully bad. I know it has been for quite a few people. My heart just sinks when I think about it. Sometimes I find that I have way too much empathy. It just sinks me down to a very low, and I try to stay positive and hope the best for people. Say my prayers for the world each evening, just blessing the world. I don't know if it helps, but it makes me feel better. And if it does help, well, good. And, but, yeah, there's my butternut squash towards the, getting towards the end of summer, I believe. I had sticks and tying up, and I wanted to keep it off the bed of the permaculture bed to try and keep it away from the slugs, because the slugs like it down there. And my echinacea, I planted from seed 3 or 4 years ago, and it took 2 full years before it bloomed. So if you ever plant echinacea, it takes a long time for it to bloom. I don't know why I was playing around with the camera there, but this is last summer. There's my butternut squash last summer. Isn't that glorious? But then the ants found the blooms, and there's my squash, my butternut squash, prior to it turning a beautiful orange. That big one there, we ate the small ones, but that big one there, it lasted a full year. I wanted to see how long, and it would have still lasted beyond that. So June 3rd of 2021, an upside down picture. Oh, for goodness sakes. So June 3rd of 2021. I had started a few butternut squash seeds in my little pellet growers. You wet them, they're little pellets, and you wet them and then they expand. Yeah. So I did that about 6 weeks before I put them, before they were ready to go out. But the garden in the spring, oh my goodness, everything seemed to have doubled or tripled in size this year. The red, as of June 3rd, the red peonies were ready to bloom. They didn't bloom at all last year. The white ones did, but the red ones didn't. The white one is already blooming right now because we're in June 14th, but I didn't get a picture of that yet. My irises are filling in that I transplanted, collard greens in my garden truck. The rhubarb, see? It's never been that big. The columbine flowers are huge. They took a few years to really come into themselves. And that was the second area where I had the butternut squash. So it's been raining all day today, and it's going to rain for the next few days. There are my bush beans, and underneath them are radishes, and my planter box with my different types of tomatoes. My cucumbers are growing. Don't know why I did the second shot of the tomatoes. I think I was filming the rain because it thundered. I don't know if you could hear the thunder on the video, so I muted this part. But here's the rain. Thank you, everybody, for watching this video. Take care. I'll be back soon.